This is VSiN PrimeTime. Live from the Circus Sportsbook in downtown Las Vegas on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Hour number 2 of VSiN PrimeTime alongside Matt Youmans. I'm Tim Murray. Alex Ovechkin from his normal office. A power play goal gives the Capitals a 1-0 lead after one period there in the nation's capital. No score midway through the first period between the Blues and the Winnipeg Jets, game 2 of that series. And at Madison Square Garden, Matt, do we see the zigzag theory come into effect in the early game as Detroit right now a 23-18 lead over the New York Knicks? Your live line down to 2.5. Knicks closed as a 6.5-point favorite. Total, closed at 221 down to 204.5.
Quick baseball update here. The Guardians, who were underdogs to the Yankees tonight, Cleveland up 6-0, and now Cleveland a monster favorite in this game. If you played 5.5 runs, it's even minus 154, and Mets up 2-0 on the Phillies.
All right, heading to the Progressive guest line right now to talk a little bit more NFL draft. Once again, we'll be on the air with a special NFL draft show on Thursday. Myself, Matt, as well as Matt Brown with you starting at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Connor Allen joins us from 4 for Football, does a great job covering all things NFL, especially the NFL draft. We were joking off air, said, hey, Connor, how many bets you got? Somewhere in the 50 range.
A
few in the back pocket already.
55.
Yeah, a few in the back pocket regarding the NFL draft. Look, we've been spending a lot of time on the quarterbacks. We're obviously going to hit on that, but I want to talk about the movement we saw today at number 5 and what to believe and what not to believe. So today we saw a shift in the betting market, and now Ashton Genty, Connor, is the betting favorite to go number 5, as we've seen a little bit of movement back with Mason Graham, also some movement of Ted McMillan. So what do you believe of a very busy day regarding the number 5 overall pick?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting because I think you need to go way back to like the combine and look at what new GM James Gladstone talked about. And that was the trenches. He talked about it at the combine, talked about it at the owners meeting. Anytime he's been given a platform, he's been talking about the importance of the trenches and obviously the whole, intangibly rich, bit he's got going on as well. But I can't get away from this kind of being smoke a little bit. I think it's very, very convenient that the Jaguars are now all of a sudden pumping that they like Ashton Genty, a player that we are pretty confident that the Raiders are somewhat interested in, that the Bears are somewhat interested in, that maybe even the Saints might be interested in, that they're now pumping that. And then they're also talking about, maybe it's Jalen Walker. Maybe Ted McMillan is in the mix. Like they're fully gassing up these players that they were not interested in for months or that no one got a whiff of. And now all of a sudden they're interested. So I think we're in a spot where I still lean towards Mason Graham. Now, I have not bet very much on this market because I think that there is a lot of uncertainty still. But I'm going to just keep letting the market push towards Genty and McMillan, and then hopefully I can get an even better price on Graham.
Yeah, I think the Jaguars putting a lot of stuff out there to try to create trade interest in that number 5 spot. Okay, where do you think Ashton Genty goes, and who do you think is going to be the first wide receiver off the board?
Yeah, I think a bit of a contrarian take. So Genty right now is obviously the favorite here for the Jaguars, also the favorite for the Raiders. I personally don't think he goes to either. I think that he falls to Chicago. I think that the Raiders end up going with Armand Membu, the offensive lineman, and just to fill in the right side there. Right now, the Raiders are starting DJ Glaze at right tackle. They need to build through the trenches as well. John Spytek, notorious, talked about it multiple times, how they value positional value. They talked about that a couple of weeks ago. And then since then they had the presser where they were just, gushing over Genty. I'm not buying that at all. So I think that he falls to either New Orleans or Chicago is interesting there. And then in terms of the first wide receiver you mentioned, I think it can go either way, but given the pricing right now, Ted McMillan's a pretty big favorite. So I think at a coin flip, I feel pretty strongly that Dallas is going to pick Golden over Tet at 12. It's just a matter of if Tet goes before 12, which, he's been rumored now at 5, rumored a little bit at 6, some sprinkles at 9 as well. But again, I just don't really see any of those as being likely scenarios. So I think that Tet goes more in like the 13 to 23 range, and I think that Golden goes 12th overall.
Connor Allen with us talking NFL draft. In my mock draft, I've got the Cowboys taking Matthew Golden, receiver from Texas, at number 12. I think that makes a lot of sense. Now, when you said Ashton Genty to the Bears, if he falls to 10, I agree with you. I think the Bears would love to have him at number 10. One of the things when I did the mock, I was, I guess, struggling over was if Genty doesn't drop, which way do the Bears go at number 10? Do you think they'd take Tyler Warren, the tight end for Penn State? Where do you think Warren and where do you think Colston Loveland, the tight end for Michigan, go?
Yeah, I feel pretty good that if Genty's there, the Bears are going to pick him. And if he's not there and Tyler Warren's there, that he would probably be their selection. Now, if both of them are gone, which is a very real scenario, again, Warren can go 7, Genty could go 6, or, he could still go 6. I'm not in that camp, but I think he could very well go that. If both of them are gone, I think the Bears could be a Colston Loveland team. I think they could be a Kelvin Banks team, put him, more as like offensive line depth. Right now, the Bears just have Braxton Jones, a left tackle, who they like by all accounts, but he's like a 5th-round pick. He's been like league average for a couple of years. He's cost-controlled, which they like, but he's not like a high upside guy, whereas a guy like Kelvin Banks could be on the left side, and obviously protecting Caleb Williams is important. But I think that they would go with Colston Loveland. There's rumors, too, that some teams have Colston Loveland ahead of Tyler Warren. The Bears could easily be one of those teams, play more 12 personnel with Loveland and Cole Kmet. Would fit Ben Johnson, I think, a little bit better. So I think that's very, very viable for the Bears to select Colston Loveland at 10th overall.
Connor Allen joining us courtesy of our Progressive Guest Line, breaking down the NFL draft. Follow him on Twitter at Connor Allen NFL. It was interesting. A couple other names just floated out there today, both from Schefter regarding number 7 with the Jets, and the Jets kind of being mysterious, not really tipping their hat one way or the other. But Jahdae Barron of Texas got a lot of love today from a couple of folks in the draft world. What do you make of that? And also Albert Breer in his article today said that Will Johnson of Michigan, due to some potential medical concerns, could drop. Do you think we could see someone like Barron be the second corner selected ahead of someone like Will Johnson?
I buy that as a possibility, Barron being the second corner. I don't buy him going 7th overall to the Jets.
Yeah, I don't either.
I have a hard time with that one. We're looking at, Michael Carter's still there. Sauce is still there. Some of the logic that was, used in those articles was basically that Aaron Glenn's like a cornerback guy. The Lions just got away with trotting out some of the worst corners in the league and just blitzing, their faces off, and did really well for most of last year, especially at the end of the year, until obviously they ran into Washington and Jaden Daniels kind of picked them apart. But Aaron Glenn made it work. Like that's my point, is like they didn't really need to add something that I think that they already consider somewhat of a strength. So I think that the Jets end up going with either offensive line or Tyler Warren. I think would be very interesting at 7th overall. So that's kind of where I'm at. But I do think that the Will Johnson slide in terms of the cornerback market could be real. He didn't test in the 40. There was rumors about him running like high 4.5s, which is not very good. He played really, really well in 2023, did not play very well in 2024. Kind of got a bad reputation for trying to set out a little bit. So I think he could fall. I think the corners are just like super volatile. You could tell me that Jahdae Barron goes anywhere from, 13 to 26, and I wouldn't be all that surprised. And same with Will Johnson in that kind of range.
Connor, DraftKings FanDuel put up a lot of props on this NFL draft. The Las Vegas market's a lot tougher to find stuff. You said you've got 50-plus bets on this draft. I know a lot of people are struggling to find as many draft bets as in past years. So at this point, what are some of your favorite bets? And I guess what are some bets that are still up there at current numbers that you like?
Yeah, I'll just give the ones that are, available still. I think that Steelers D-line is pretty interesting. That's like a little over 2-1. I'm not necessarily buying them taking a quarterback. And they're just in that range where Walter Nolan, Derek Harmon, Kenneth Grant are all viable options there. And we know it's a need. So a lot of the Steelers beats have been talking that up and saying no quarterback. So I think that's an interesting look for sure. I did play Golden first receiver at plus money, I think is interesting. Packers first pick as a wide receiver, I think is really interesting. I think if Ted McMillan falls, they will run to the podium and select him. I think they could trade up for him. And I also think that Igbukah could be interesting for them. That's, again, anywhere from plus 750, plus 800. A Sweat that I'm not sure that most people will love, but under 2.5 quarterbacks is still plus money. And I think that one, there's just not really a landing spot for Shedeur or Jackson Dart or Jalen Milroe right now. So you're basically at Cam Ward, and then I think that you basically need two teams to trade into the 20s essentially to pick those quarterbacks. And I mean, you're just asking a lot. So at plus money, I'm willing to fade the possibility of that happening.
Yeah, we just had Johnny Avello on last hour, Connor. I played that earlier today. It was wild to see that move from plus 260 to plus 150 on under 2.5 quarterbacks taken in the first round. So I guess we'll wrap on that. Connor Allen joining us here. By the way, I just want to point out, if the Green Bay Packers did take a wide receiver in the first round with the draft being in Green Bay, and I don't think they've taken a wide receiver since like the 80s.
Actually, I think
Was it
2003?
Was it 2003?
I think it was the last time Packers took a wide receiver in the first round.
The place would go absolutely bonkers.
Oh, yeah. They're gonna maybe they'll play to the crowd.
Maybe.
In Green Bay. I like the wide receiver pick, by the way, for the Packers at 23, or if they trade up.
Yeah, take a flyer there. But to wrap here, Connor, just a final minute on the quarterback market. What do you feel like is going to happen? Jackson Dart, Shedeur Sanders, who goes first? What is a possible landing spot?
Yeah, honestly, I personally think that Pittsburgh doesn't pick a quarterback. I don't think that anyone I think Minnesota is a prime trade-out spot. So I think that either Cleveland or the Giants trade out for Shedeur Sanders to 24th overall and select Shedeur Sanders there. I'm not really sold that Jackson Dart honestly goes in the first round anymore. So I think that's probably the landing spot, and it'll be Shedeur. But I don't mind the plus money on Dart. I just haven't heard as many teams connected with him anymore.
He's Connor Allen. Follow him on social media at Connor Allen NFL. 4 for Football is the website, and the podcast Move the Lines. Appreciate it, Connor.
Thanks, guys. Talk soon.
Coming up, bottom of the hour, we'll talk a little Golden State Warriors with Monte, Poole. Tony Pauline will join us at 9 o'clock Eastern. We'll get you updated on the Detroit Pistons and the New York Knicks, as the Knicks trailing right now at Madison Square Garden against those pesky Pistons. Also 2 games on the ice to get you updated on as well. It's VSiN Primetime.
This is VSiN Primetime on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Detroit Pistons making it interesting at Madison Square Garden. They did so on Saturday until the New York Knicks decided to go on a 21-0 run in the fourth quarter to pull away, win, and cover on Saturday there at the Garden. But right now, Matt, 41-32 is the score, and the Detroit Pistons are an in-game favorite, -1.5, with 6 and change to go in the second quarter. So we'll see if this is this the spot to bet the Knicks, or do we wait a little bit to see if there's another opportunity to jump in with the New York Knickerbockers?
Well, that's a fair question. I don't really have the answer for you. I have not watched this game closely during the show tonight, so I'm not going to give you an opinion. Like you said, if you watch the Knicks Pistons game on Saturday, I think you'd be a little bit gun shy to play the Pistons tonight, because that 21-0 run, they blew the Pistons out of the water, and certainly something like that could happen again tonight. I've been a little bit impressed every time I look up. The Pistons seem to be controlling the game, but that's about as far as I could go. Hey, just to follow up quickly what we talked about with Connor Allen, and you mentioned the last time the Packers took wide receiver in the first round, you'll probably remember who it was, Javon Walker from Florida State in 2002.
Okay.
So I wonder if the Packers, who have an obvious need a wide receiver.
Yes, they do.
Christian Watkins has an ACL tear, and he's going to be out, what would you say, at least the first 2 months, first 6 weeks?
Yeah, if not longer than that, right?
Of the 2025 season. I think if Ted McMillan starts to slide, or even if Matthew Golden's there, who knows? I think it's going to be McMillan. That's who I had going to the Packers, my mock draft at 23. I think Green Bay would actually not only play to the crowd, Tim, but also fill a big need there with a wide receiver in the first round.
Right now at DraftKings, the Packers to spend their first pick on a wide receiver, currently 6-1. And shop around. I haven't looked at other shops. I just have DraftKings up here.
I think that's about the best you're going to find, because I've been looking for that the last 2 days, and plus 450, I think, is what Chuck Esposito has up at Red Rock.
I think it's, I mean, once again, when you're talking about some long shots and a couple of longer shots that Connor mentioned, I did throw a long shot in today for the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, I do have
Right.
I like to keep things as full disclosure as possible. I do have Ashton Genty to be picked by the Raiders. I bet that at -115. I don't feel great about it, but the odds are still worse than that, I guess, right now.
I don't feel great about it either. I bet that at -150. That's now down to -105, right in that pick'em range.
Yeah, -105 running back, first pick for actually, hold on, let me -125 at DraftKings.
Okay.
So
how about this? Connor Allen mentioned this, and I was going to throw this at you. You were gone Friday when JVT and I talked about this. Do you think all the talk from the Raiders, John Spytek, the GM, and Pete Carroll, the coach, all that gushing they did about Ashton Genty and that meeting with the media last week, is a smoke screen to make it look like, oh, yeah, the Raiders love Genty, when that's not the guy they have their eyes on?
I think there is, and we've been talking about it a lot here on the network. It's felt, especially at 6 and what feels to be a very uncertain draft, it felt a little too convenient. But, you've got sources inside that building. I've talked to people that a couple weeks ago felt like that's their guy. That's who they're going to get. But is it a smokescreen to try to get more draft capital? The Chicago Bears, Connor mentioned that, could be a great landing spot for someone like Ashton Genty. I put a flyer out there on D-line/edge. Earlier today, it was at 8-1 for the Raiders to spend their first pick on. I could see that. I could see
I got a question for you.
Yes.
I almost made that bet, but I looked up something today. Maybe you can answer this. I looked at NFL.com, and Jalen Walker, the edge rusher from Georgia, is listed on there as a linebacker.
Yep.
Now, when you're betting that prop, it lists linebacker separately from defensive line edge rusher. So does Jalen Walker fall into linebacker or edge rusher officially on that prop bet? That's why I didn't make the bet, because I wanted to clarify that before I actually made it, because I think Jalen Walker would be the pick if the Raiders don't go with Ashton Genty. Armand Mimbu, the offensive lineman from Missouri, I think is a strong possibility. But Jalen Walker is the player I like best for the Raiders at 6. But on NFL.com, he was listed as a linebacker.
Let me double check something here, because that is a great question. And if I don't get Jalen Walker in that bet, I like it a lot less than what I made it, because I think if Mason Graham is there, that certainly could be a possibility if he doesn't go number 5. Well, let's do this. While I look up what he is going to be listed as, Jalen Walker out of Georgia, let's do this. Let's hear from Daniel Jeremiah regarding the possibility of, at number 5, Ashton Genty being the selection for the Jacksonville Jaguars.
I would have said a month ago, Ashton Genty will be there and he'd be a great option for him. As we come down the home stretch, and maybe I'm reading too much into this, but when I listen to the guys in Jacksonville talk, and you listen to the head coach and the general manager discuss what they're looking for in a player, and they talk about a statement pick and the first pick of their new regime there, and valuing the things that they're valuing in terms of the character, the competitiveness, all those things. I'm like, golly, that sounds like 2 players to me. That sounds like Ashton Genty, and that sounds like Jalen Walker. So I would not rule out the possibility that Genty, went ahead of that pick, and then he's off the board.
Also, this from Adam Schefter regarding the number 5 pick. Many mock drafts have pegged the Jaguars to select Michigan defensive tackle Mason Graham. As the venerable Lee Corso says, I'm reading verbatim.
Not so fast.
Not so fast, my friends. New GM James Gladstone, who has 10 picks to work with, including 4 in the top 90, might not be that predictable. As one league executive said recently, quote, Jacksonville is a wild card. Watch. Jacksonville coach Liam Cohen has long had a soft spot for wide receivers in the draft, and the top-weighted wide receiver in this class, Arizona's Ted McMillan, has drawn comparisons to Bucs wide receiver Mike Evans.
He's not everyone's top wide receiver in the class, so.
Some have questions McMillan's passion for football, but others suggest he is misunderstood and that when he's on the football, quote, he's an absolute baller. That from Adam Schefter earlier today on ESPN.com. I am pretty confident in saying, I guess you shouldn't be this confident with anything in the NFL draft outside of Cam Ward going 1 and Hunter going 2. I don't think Ted McMillan's going 5. That would be pretty shocking if Ted McMillan goes 5. But, hey, I didn't think Michael Penix would go 8 last year to the Atlanta Falcons, and he did.
Yeah, I don't see the value in taking Teteroya McMillan at number 5. That's a player we're talking about, a wide receiver we think could slip to 23 to the Packers.
Sure.
So why would you take him at number 5? Well, the Jaguars' new GM, I think these guys like to be viewed as geniuses, who think outside the box and do the unconventional things. That would be unconventional, and I don't think it would be a smart play. But again, if you've watched any interviews with the new Jaguars GM, I think he's in way over his head with this job and is probably not ready for it. So it wouldn't surprise me if the Jaguars made an off-the-wall pick, right?
No, absolutely.
Also, I think they're trying to drum up interest, which would be the smart thing to do. Drum up interest to trade for teams to trade up to the number 5 spot. If I'm the Jaguars at 5, there's plenty of good players you could get if you trade down. Let's say you trade down with the Bears to 10. You're not trading down too far. You're still going to get a player you want. You're going to pick up more picks.
Maybe you get your guy, Ted McMillan. You're still ahead of the Cowboys at 12.
Him at 10. Yeah, if you want him at 10, take him at 10, trade with the Bears. They get Ashton Genty if that's the guy they want, and that would be the smart thing to do. But again, a lot of times you watch the draft and you're scratching your head and say, that wasn't smart. Some of these GMs really struggle with the draft process, Tim, and that's why we're trying to predict something that's some years very unpredictable. And I think of the last 7-8 years or so, this might be the most unpredictable draft once you get past the first few picks.
It's funny, circling back to the question you asked, it looks like most places have Jalen Walker listed as a linebacker. So that I was going to recommend that bet today. I am not going to recommend that bet because I don't think it was a good bet.
I almost made the bet. I looked it up and I said, he's listed as a linebacker at NFL.com, so maybe I shouldn't make that bet.
I thought with that bet, I was getting both Mason Graham and Jalen Walker.
That would be a good bet in that case.
And that I don't think is happening. I think it's just Mason Graham, which could be the possibility. You put him there to fortify the inside part of that line. But, that is that was a good job by you to recognize, and that's always something too. You see a lot of the determinations. Travis Hunter, is he a cornerback? Is he a wide receiver? So that is certainly something.
And I have heard that if the Raiders are not going to pick Genty, they do like the Michigan defensive lineman, and they also like Jalen Walker, the linebacker from Georgia, quite a bit. So see if you could group those guys.
I know, that's what I thought.
That would be a pretty good bet. What number did you get on that?
8-1.
Yeah, on
edge rusher or defensive lineman, but I think the linebacker and Jalen Walker not part of that, which is unfortunate for me. So, coming up bottom of the hour, we will talk to Monte Poole, get his thoughts on the Golden State Warriors, fresh off their Game 1 victory over the Houston Rockets. Will that be continued along? Hey, folks, just a reminder, VSiN.com, we've got a little competition going on, Matt, over at VSiN.com, so you can check out what we've got to offer over there. VSiN.com/subscribe. You become a VSiN Pro subscriber today for only $59 for access to everything until August 1st. We'll talk some NBA playoffs with Monte Poole next.
This is VSiN PrimeTime on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
We keep it rolling. Monte Poole covers the Golden State Warriors, going to join us in 15 minutes. So we will get his thoughts here in just a matter of moments. Detroit still with a 8-point lead right now over the New York Knicks, make it a 9-point lead at Madison Square Garden as they have that lead with 2:55 to go in the second quarter. After the first period of play north of the border in Winnipeg, Matt, 1-1 the score between the Jets and Blues. And then a game that you are monitoring here, the Washington Capitals lead 1-0 over the Montreal Canadiens. And another opportunity there for the Capitals comes up just a bit off. The only goal, you guessed it, Alex Ovechkin scored on the power play late in the first period. So 1-0 Capitals leading right now at Capital One Arena there in the nation's capital. Something closing out a money line parlay for you here this evening, Matt.
I think it's fitting that the Washington Capitals play Capital One Arena.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's 1-0 right now. Washington. This has been a really great hockey game. Hard hitting. Caps with another great shot here on goal. Great opportunity and come up short. So Washington was, and then we have a goal. Caps up 2-0. How about that, Tim?
There we go.
Close range stuff today. I've been watching this game and last night's Vegas Golden Knights game, I think closer than any two hockey games I watched all year. But Caps go up 2-0, and we'll see what the live money line adjustment is on this.
Whew.
It's going to be
a lot.
It's going to be north of $5, which is what it was before that goal. It was Caps minus 500. We'll see. I don't think there's going to be a review of this, right?
No, I don't believe so. This looked like a pretty clean goal. So 2-0 right now. Capitals have the lead over the Montreal Canadiens, and I guess we will double check that is a good goal. So before we get updated there on the live betting market, the Knicks, by the way, on a run here. So it looks like a 7-0 run for the New York Knicks, and they have now moved back to an in-game favorite, Matt. So a little ping-ponging there from an in-game standpoint as they're in the closing minute of the first half. 52-47 the lead for the Knicks, and now to a 2.5-point favorite now are the New York Knicks. A baseball game, Matt, that we've been keeping an eye on a little bit here. The New York Knicks, New York Knicks. Knicks were on the mind. The Yankees trying to make it a comeback there in Cleveland.
I believe Jazz Chisholm hit a 2-run homer right there. That was right before the Capitals scored the goal. Cut it to 6-4, so wrote off the Yankees a little bit too soon. 6-4 Cleveland with the lead in the top of the 8th. Yankees, no runners on and 2 outs. And now they got a walk, so they got a runner on and the tying runner coming to the plate in the top of the 8th. Capitals take that 2-0 lead. The money line at DraftKings right now, minus 1850 on Washington.
That's ideal for your money line parlay.
Minus 185 pregame to minus 1850.
Good spot to be in.
Yeah.
The Cleveland Guardians, you mentioned Jazz Chisholm hitting a 2-run shot in the top of the 8th inning. They hit another 2-run shot in the top of the 7th. So they were down 6-0. Now have cut it to 6-4. Matt, we're going to talk a little more NBA coming up in just a little bit. Tonight, our VSiN Primetime game of the night, Clippers and Nuggets. And this will be game 2 of this series, a series that went to overtime. Fair to say, of the first 8 games that we watched unfold over the weekend, best game of the weekend from the NBA standpoint?
I think that's fair to say for sure. And again, I got the Nuggets in 7 at plus 390. Really needed the Nuggets to win game 1. At the least, you want the Nuggets to split these 2 home games. So you get the first game, and Tim, you and I agreed here. I thought the Clippers outplayed the Nuggets for a majority of the game. Denver came back from double digits down in the second half. The game goes to OT. Nuggets win 112-110, and Denver didn't shoot the lights out. 9 for 27 from 3. And not a lot of production from the bench other than Russell Westbrook, who hit a couple surprise threes and had 15 points in the game. The Joker, 29, 12, and 9, almost put up a triple-double. I thought Jamal Murray played well. I said, Murray's going to have to outplay James Harden for the Nuggets to win this series. He didn't shoot it especially great. 7 for 20 from the field, 3 for 7 from 3. But Murray had 21 points, 9 rebounds, 7 assists. If he can do that, I think it's going to give Denver a decent chance to win pretty much every night out in this series. James Harden actually outplayed him. Harden had 32 points and 11 assists and hit 4 threes. I'll tell you the one player that really surprised me by how ineffective he was, and this is going to be something to watch from the Denver side in this series. Michael Porter played 26 minutes with 1 for 4 from the field and had 3 points. What has happened to Michael Porter, who was a key player when the Nuggets won the championship a couple of years ago?
Yeah, there's no doubt. And I think, too, what surprised me, and you mentioned the production that we got from Russell Westbrook, 15 points. He wasn't all that efficient, shocker.
5 for 17.
But he hit the big 3, and you know that Russell Westbrook, when he gets that mojo going, he's not afraid to shy away from the big moment. And the fact that the Nuggets bench outscored the Clippers bench, I mean, Russell Westbrook did it by himself. He outscored him 15-13. The bench in totality outscored the Clippers bench 23-13. That was certainly surprising when you think about the Clippers, a team that is definitely more deep than this Nuggets team. So we will see. I'm on the Clippers tonight, but you do wonder, Matt, that tax that you're paying, is it too much? The Nuggets went off as a 3-point favorite on Saturday. Game goes to overtime. Nuggets get the 2-point victory. And now the Clippers are out here laying 1.5. So that's a 4.5-point move based solely off of the situation. And you got to wonder, is that too much? You and I think no, but also worth noting. And as you mentioned, live betting NBA is a really advantageous way to go, and you can more than likely get the Clippers and the Nuggets at a pretty good price here tonight.
Yeah, I played the Clips -1, but again, a small bet because I'm playing to live bet this game. We're about, an hour and a half away from tip in Denver. And when you're talking about a 1-point line in the NBA, with the volatility of the games and the swings and the momentum shifts, you're probably going to be able to get at some point the Clippers plus, I don't know, what are you looking for? 3.5 or 4? Sure. Somewhere in that range. You're going to be able to get something better than plus 1.5 with the Nuggets if you like the home underdog tonight. So in general, I've got like a third of a unit on the Clippers -1. I plan to live bet this game as well tonight. I think this is going to be, it was the same case Saturday, Tim, back and forth game. And in fact, when the Nuggets were down 14, you could have grabbed a fat number with Denver, and the Nuggets completed the comeback to go up 1-0 in the series.
Matt, I was really looking for a Memphis plus 51.5 on Sunday. I never saw it. Never saw it out there.
I thought you can verify this or double check it. I thought Big Cat from Barstool had one of the best ideas I've heard in a long time.
What was that?
At least in terms of the NBA playoffs. And Chris Felica tweeted about it today. I think Big Cat said, I don't want to get this wrong, but I think he said if the favorite or if a team wins game 1 of a playoff series by 50 points or more, the series is over. You don't play any more games. That's it. It's over and done. Like the Thunder beat the Grizzlies by 50, series over. They don't have to play anymore. And that would make the blowouts more interesting, right? It'd give the favorite, OKC, more incentive to stay on the gas and try to blow out the Memphis Grizzlies as much as possible, by as many points as possible. It gives Memphis some incentive to stay in the game and play harder and not just let go of the rope. I thought that was a pretty cool idea. Obviously, it's never going to happen because the NBA wants as many games as possible out of each of these playoff series because of revenue. Wouldn't that be cool if a 50-point
throw in the towel
game? That's it. Series over.
The Thunder out to a -8,000 favorite to win that series, Matt. As are the Celtics, -8,000 favorite over the Magic. Even though I think the Magic have a chance to be feisty in some of these series, Matt. Of the ones, and we only have a little bit before we get to Monte, Poole, but of the teams that lost over the weekend, I think the clear answer would be the Clippers. You think they could still ultimately come back and win that series?
Sure.
The Bucks get their butts whipped. I think they are potentially dead men walking.
Did you see that outfit that Damian Lillard was wearing?
He's going to be back, though.
Huh?
He's going to be back. That's what he said. If you read his lips, he's going to be back for game 2.
Oh, my gosh.
Lakers plus 125, Rockets 3-1, Matt. Who would you look at and believe that they have a chance to come back and win their respective series?
Oh, boy. I liked the Rockets before the series. After watching last night, I don't like the Rockets so much anymore. After watching Jalen Green and Fred VanVleet last night, Green shot 3 for 15 from the floor. VanVleet was 2 for 13 from 3. You can't get that. I don't care if Ime Udoka is a combination of Red Auerbach and Phil Jackson. If your top 2 guards shoot like that, you're not going to win. So I still think the Rockets, because of their defense, have a chance to get back and win this series against Golden State. I would go with Houston, even though I'm very disappointed in the way the Rockets played last night.
We'll talk more about that series coming up in just about 5 minutes with Monte Poole, who covers the Warriors for NBC Sports Bay Area. But hey, folks, just a reminder, take your betting to the next level with First Bet, whether it's Santa Anita, Gulfstream Park, or the road to the Kentucky Derby and the Preakness. First Bet puts the action at your fingertips. Sign up now at firstbet.com. It's the #1 stbet.com. Use the promo code VSiN200 to score a 20% rebate on all your wagers for the first 60 days up to $200. Don't miss out. Bet smarter today. Firstbet.com.
This is VSiN PrimeTime on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
The NBA playoffs in full force. Busy weekend in the rear view. 2 games today. Pistons and Knicks right now at the end of the first half at Madison Square Garden. Pistons a 6-point lead over the Knicks, and the Knicks still a slight favorite on the in-game market, -1.5, -$1.35 at DraftKings on the money line. Still to come tonight, Clippers and Nuggets. That's Matt Youmans. I'm Tim Murray. And then tomorrow, actually on Wednesday, we get Golden State and Houston for game number 2. And a gentleman who's been covering the Golden State Warriors for quite some time, full-time since 2013. Monte Poole out at NBC Sports Bay Area joins us courtesy of our progressive guest line right now at Monte Poole, NBCS. And Monte, as we try to dissect what we saw yesterday in Houston, a 95-85 victory for the Golden State Warriors. Jimmy drops in 25. Steph Curry has 31, and the defense stepped up. Really, no one, as Matt alluded to in the last segment, Monte, was go-to for Houston. What was your biggest takeaway, and how sustainable was what we saw yesterday for Golden State moving forward through the rest of this series?
My biggest takeaway was that they did what they said they would do the next time they saw the Rockets. They lost to them a couple weeks ago in San Francisco. And after that game, I talked to players and coaches alike, and they all had the same sort of response. Like, okay, we know how to beat these guys. We didn't do it just now, but we know how to beat these guys. And what was consistently said was that, A, we can't be turning the ball over to these guys. If we let them get in transition, it's going to be tough for us. So take care of the ball. And B, keep them in the half court. Those two subjects kind of dovetail because obviously if you turn the ball over, live ball turnovers can kill you. But keep them in the half court. And they felt totally confident that if the game becomes a half court game where the Warriors can set their defense, that they can handle this team. And for all but about 12 minutes, they did. In the first 2.5 quarters, Warriors built a 23-point lead. And they figured it away. How? Because they started to give away turnovers. And so they turned the ball over a few times, and they can't set their defense. And Houston takes advantage and makes the game a close game again. And before the Warriors realize, okay, let's get back to our defense. Let's take care of the ball down the stretch. We'll take care of this, and we'll win the game. So they just think that Houston's half-court offense is just okay. Nothing special. And that's their edge. And the question that I have before game one, that I have for this series is the Warriors know the blueprint, but do they have the ability to execute it? And in game one, they did for most of the game, and that was enough.
Monte, you're right. That half-court offense for Houston's nothing special last night. Jalen Green, Fred VanVleet combined to shoot 7 for 34 from the field, including 2 for 17 from 3. Now, I always say a NBA playoff series is all about adjustments. For the Rockets, it's going to be mostly about making shots, right, in Game 2. What was the adjustment that the Warriors made from that last regular season game? I watched that on April 6th. That was a 10-point win for the Rockets in San Francisco. Stephen Curry, 1 for 10, held to 3 points. Last night, he comes back and scored 31. I assume you anticipated Curry was going to come back with a vengeance last night. What was the adjustment the Rockets made going into last night's Game 1? And is there some adjustment the adjustment the Warriors made going into last night's Game 1, and is there an adjustment Houston can make prior to Game 2?
Okay, let me see. The first question is about the Warriors, right?
Yeah, the Warriors. What was I know it was a long, winding road there. So I thought, I was concerned from the Rockets' perspective that Curry was going to bounce back. He was held to 3 points in that April 6th game. He scores 31 last night. What did the Warriors do differently last night, and what's the adjustment the Rockets can make prior to Game 2?
There's a little bit of both adjustments that were made. First of all, Steph's history is that whenever there was a quote-unquote Steph stopper, there's usually a very short-lived situation. We can go back to Matthew Dellavedova back a decade ago. He was a Steph stopper for like half the game.
Yeah, right.
And Steph stoppers don't have a long shelf life. So Steph has a way of diagnosing what he did wrong, what he needs to do better. And he, along with the strategies and the designs of the play designs of Steve Kerr, they find ways to make it work. That's been his history. No one's been a Steph stopper over a period of time. There's been guys who do a good job. Avery Bradley, once upon a time, did a good job against him, but over time, Steph figures all these guys out. And if you go back to 22 finals against Boston, the Celtics had the defensive player of the year, Marcus Smart.
Yep.
And Steph didn't care, In Game 4, he put up a 40-burger on him, and basically won the series with that game. So, and Steve is good at figuring out ways to free Steph. And so that was the adjustment they made on offense. Just make sure we free Steph. And I think the Rockets did something different, too. They didn't do as much top blocking in that game on yesterday as they did in the first game. In the first game, Amen Thompson was all over Steph, and he would not let Steph get to the three-point line. He was basically making sure, sealing off the three-point line. If you're going to score on us, you're going to go into the paint and do it. It's kind of what he did. So yesterday, when they started, guess what Steph did? He went to the paint. He missed his first three-pointers, but he made a couple, got to the hoop. And then that opened up things on opened up Houston's defense. And then Steph started making threes and making crazy threes. And there ain't a whole lot of defense can do about that.
Monte Poole joining us here, courtesy of our progressive guest line, covers the Golden State Warriors for NBC Sports Bay Area. At Monte Poole NBCS is where you can find him on Twitter. Monte, looking big picture on this Golden State team, you've covered the teams that have won championships. Jimmy Butler comes in, and there was a lot of curiosity, or how is this going to work? It's worked pretty darn well for Golden State, and it's just one game. You never want to put the cart before the horse, but right now, that portion of the bracket, you're looking down at the Minnesota Timberwolves. They get a 1-0 lead on Los Angeles Lakers. From what you've seen in the short glimpse of Jimmy Butler being with this Golden State team, what's the ceiling for this Warriors team right now?
I would still be surprised if they make the finals, because the NBA history is unkind to older teams, and you've got Steph 37, Draymond 35, Jimmy 35. And so in that sense, they are swimming against the tide of NBA history. I mean, old teams, at least old cores, don't win. You can win with an old guy. Kareem won when he was 38. Dirk won when he was 36 or 7 or something like that. No, he was 35. I think Jason Kidd was the old guy on that Dallas Mavericks team 14 years ago. But by and large, Michael Jordan's last championship, he and Scottie Pippen and Dennis Rodman, the average age was like 33, 34 years old.
Right.
Jimmy, Steph, and Draymond, they're more like just under 36 on the average. And so that's the hard part for me is can their intellect and know-how, they have great postseason know-how and confidence. They feel like once they get to the postseason, they're in their own playground. And not many teams can match that. And so but my question to them in this series and how far the Warriors might go in the postseason is that enough to overcome some of the stuff that's going to come at them? And I think this is their first trip. Yeah, Fred VanVleet's been there before. Dylan Brooks has been in the playoffs before, but for most of these guys, this is new to them. And the Warriors, when they see a new team, they usually feast. Now, I don't know. I still think the Warriors are going to win the series. I said initially they're going to win in 6. And if they win on Wednesday, I don't think they'll go 6.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's the thing. It's like I think they can make a deep run, but the caution flag for me is their age. And so to me, a deep run is only going to be able to happen is if they get some good supportive action from the other guys on this team, the younger guys, whether it's Podziemski or Moses Moody. Jonathan Kuminga right now is in the doghouse, so you may not see him. You may or may not see him. Gary Payton II, who's not a young guy, he's 32. So, but Gary's been there, and so but the others outside of Steph, Draymond, and Jimmy, the others I think will dictate how far this team goes, and that's a hard part to predict because Podziemski, that was his first playoff game yesterday. Moses played in the playoffs before, but he never had a big role. He's starting now, and so it's different. And so if those guys come through, they can make it to the Western Conference Finals. If they don't come through, then, you ask if you're going to hang out to Steph, you're going to leave Steph and Draymond and Jimmy out to dry. I don't think that'll be enough as good as those three can be. I don't think that'll be enough to sustain the Warriors into June.
Yeah, I agree with you there. All right, Monte Poole, final question, final 40 seconds. Game 2 is Wednesday night. Rockets, who were 1.5-point favorites in Game 1, now 3-point favorites in Game 2. What's your outlook for Game 2?
I think the Rockets will try to ante up the pressure. I think Amen will, like in the game when they beat the Warriors a couple of weeks ago, Eamon basically, literally was holding Steph at times.
Yeah.
I mean, you saw bear hugs going on the court, and he was less aggressive yesterday. And I would expect that they'll be more aggressive to try and stop Steph. They'll load up on Steph and make somebody else beat them. And if Jimmy can do it, then he will. And if fouls are being called, Jimmy might get to the line 15, 20 times.
He's Monte Poole. Monte, appreciate the insight.
All right, guys, take care.
There he is, Monte Poole. Been covering the Warriors for over a decade out there in the Bay Area.